Hey guys, today I'll show you a science fiction thriller TV series named Tripped Season 1. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The drama begins on the nighttime streets where Milo is feeling down because his good friend Danny is getting engaged, and he wasn't invited to be the best man. Danny didn't invite Milo because Danny's fiancée, Kate, doesn't get along with him. Milo heads into the bar, where Danny's engagement party is in full swing, bringing with him some magic mushrooms as an engagement gift. Danny is speechless at his friend's choice but says nothing. Milo, aware of his own quirks, steps outside. After a moment, Danny follows him out. At that moment, a drunken man stumbles out from the back of the bar, still drinking. The two of them laugh at the sight, remarking about heaven's stairway as the drunk, looking dazed, descends the steps. Halfway down, he misses a step and falls, causing them both to burst into laughter. Once the humor subsides, they chat about old times. They've been friends since childhood, but Milo's self-destructive behavior and lack of ambition have created distance between them. Milo knows Danny is his only friend and feels hurt about not being chosen as the best man. Danny, however, feels helpless as Kate finds Milo doesn't smell good, a fact he can't change. Milo finally hugs Danny goodbye, saying he'll never see him again and wishes him a happy married life. Danny wants to say something to encourage him, but finds himself at a loss for words, and Milo walks away. After leaving, Milo heads to his apartment's bathroom and devours an entire bag of hallucinogen. He then stumbles back to his place, says hello to his late grandmother, and settles onto the sofa, lighting up a joint. Just as he takes a drag, a strange figure from the Middle Ages appears before him. Milo, glancing at his joint, assumes he's hallucinating. But as the figure lifts his hood, he realizes it's Danny. This otherworldly Danny says his world isn't the only one, there are millions more. Milo, feeling groggy and not fully grasping everything, tries to get him to repeat, having zoned out. Medieval Danny, unimpressed, isn't inclined to repeat himself and instead insists that Milo come with him since time is running out. Still dazed, Milo doubts what he's seeing and refuses, saying Danny is not real because another one of him just popped up behind. Medieval Danny, alerted, dodges an attack from a sword-wielding figure, and the two begin to wrestle with their muscles rather than tongues. Milo watches the big show unfazed until the battle spills over, forcing him to dodge. Medieval Danny yells for him to run for his shitty life, and Milo finally bolts, scrambling up the stairs. But just as he reaches the top, Medieval Danny is struck down and the sword-wielding man steps forward to execute him, sending him to meet Jesus in heaven. Terrified, Milo stumbles into his bedroom and searches for a place to hide. The swordsman enters, and Milo frantically mutters that he is not real, just a figment of his imagination. However, the swordsman ignores his smelly bullshit, pressing the blade to his chicken throat. Milo's chicken scream snaps him awake, as the figure remarks it's always the same with him saying his dull last words. He told him to try to be a bit more original. Milo, desperate, responds he's pushing him too much here. Unfazed, the swordsman raises his blade to strike, but at the last moment, a sword pierces him from behind. To Milo's shock, his savior is the injured Medieval Danny, who wasn't dead after all. The fallen man warns that this isn't the end, and there will be more. Medieval Danny replies to the man that he can be the first to go and finishes him off. Milo stares, wide-eyed, as Medieval Danny clutches his wound, sparks flickering from some kind of device on his wrist. Milo, regaining his composure, asks if he is okay. Panting, Medieval Danny tells him to remember what he's about to say. Milo and Danny are different, and Milo needs to find him. Milo, confused, asks how to find him. Medieval Danny instructs him to follow the wristband to the Golden Mire. Milo has no idea what this means, but before he can ask more, Medieval Danny vanishes in a ripple of time. The insober Milo belatedly says he should probably write this down somewhere. The next morning, Danny's fiancée wakes him up, and he takes the chance to pounce on Kate, ready for a hormone therapy. In the midst of their sweet moment, Milo calls, saying he's in trouble and needs help. Danny asks if he is still not sober. Milo replies bluntly that he doesn't know, but it's the last time asking Danny to help him. With some reluctance, Danny convinces his fiancée and hops on his Tesla bike. He soon arrives at Milo's nearby place, locks his Tesla bike, and heads to the door. Milo quickly opens the door and gives Danny a big hug, immediately telling him about the situation. They go to the bedroom, where a shocked Danny sees a dead body on the floor. He rushes over, confirming it's a real corpse, and asks what happened. Milo explains it's another version of Danny who did it. As he speaks, Milo notices the wristband on the corpse's arm, points to it, and says the other Danny had one too, but after he got hurt, he vanished. Danny, staring at the corpse and Milo's confused rambling, says he can't deal with this. It's insane. He tries to leave, but Milo grabs his hand, and they're both caught in a temporal ripple, making them disoriented. Danny snaps back to reality and says this is too much and he can't help Milo. With that, Danny heads for the door, Milo trying to stop him, but Danny, fed up with his friend's messes, turns at the door and says he's done dealing with his nonsense. He steps out, only to discover his Tesla bike is missing, and curses aloud. Back inside, Milo returns to the bedroom, only to find it completely transformed. Shocked, he wonders what's happening. Danny returns home to his fiancée, feeling a strange sense of unease. Upstairs, he hears voices, follows the sound to the bedroom, and is stunned to find his fiancée in bed with someone else. Meanwhile, Milo fiddles with an electric piano, but upon hearing a sound, grabs a crucifix for protection. Following the noise to the kitchen, he's shocked to find his deceased grandmother alive and cooking. Danny, shaken by what he's seen, rushes back to Milo's place. As soon as he arrives, he angrily demands to know what he has done to him since he just caught Kate cheating. He soon realizes something is also off about Milo's house. Milo responds he thinks they're in a parallel world, triggered by the wristband. Danny, still skeptical, asks if he drugged him last night. Milo denies it, saying he only tried it once and stopping him not to bring it up again. Just then, they hear a noise from the kitchen, and Milo takes Danny to see his revived grandmother. When Danny realizes a deceased person is somehow alive, he fully accepts this isn't an illusion and tells Milo his grandmother passed away 7 years ago. This means they're indeed in a different time space. Milo nods in agreement. Danny, realizing the wristband's importance, rushes to the bedroom, aiming to use it to travel back to his original world. Milo tries to stop him, but Danny shoves his smelly butt aside and frantically presses buttons on the wristband, causing the corpse to vanish, leaving Danny too stunned to speak. After calming down, Danny and Milo begin analyzing the situation. They conclude that if this is a parallel universe, then there must be another version of Danny here as well, which means the killer might target this world's Danny. The killer likely has a wristband too, so if they can deal with the killer, they might be able to return. With a clear goal in mind, they borrow Milo's grandmother's car and set off to find this universe's Danny. Soon, they spot the parallel Danny on the roadside near his workplace. Seeing two versions of Danny at once unnerves them both. Their initial plan is for Milo to warn the parallel Danny about the potential assassination, then have the three of them join forces with Milo of this universe to take down the killer, allowing them each to return to their own world. But after just a few words, Danny and Milo start bickering again, with Danny berating Milo's mess and Milo complaining about not being chosen as the best man. In the midst of their argument, a temporal distortion appears on the road, and the killer arrives, slaying the parallel Danny with one strike. Milo and Danny, still arguing inside the car, are completely oblivious to what just happened. Even as they step out, Danny continues lecturing Milo, unaware of the scene until they finally notice the parallel Danny lying mortally wounded on the ground. Danny and Milo, in shock, approach the parallel Danny. Staring at his other self, the parallel Danny asks if he is his spirit and if he is about to die. Danny tries to comfort him, finding it surreal to watch himself dying. After whispering a final message to tell Kate he loves her, the parallel Danny passes away. Milo, less emotional, simply remarks that they should stash him in the trunk. Spreading news of his death would only complicate their plans. Agreeing, they place the parallel Danny's body into the trunk of Milo's grandmother's car. Afterward, the two begin to argue over what to do next. Danny wants to deliver his parallel self's last words to Kate, while Milo insists on rescuing his other self in this universe. As their fight escalates, Danny accuses Milo of ruining his life and storms off. Milo, undeterred, hops in the car and drives off to find his counterpart. Soon, he locates his counterpart at a church, a lead given by his grandmother, who had remarked earlier that he should be at church today. Waiting in the shadows until the choir practice ends, Milo locks eyes with his counterpart. As the parallel Milo prepares to scream in his chicken voice, he quickly covers his smelly mouth, dragging him inside and telling him not to yell because he's him. Just then, a temporal disturbance outside signals the killer's arrival. Inside the church, the parallel Milo calms down, and being religious in this world, believes Milo is sent by God to teach him a church lesson. After hearing Milo's explanation, the parallel Milo, still skeptical, asks what kind of danger there is. Just then, a sword pierces the church door, and Milo yells, "It's that kind!" He grabs his parallel self, and they escape through a window with the killer close behind. After a tense chase, they manage to reach the car and temporarily shake him off. Terrified, the parallel Milo starts crying like a giant baby, prompting Milo to scold him not to act like a giant baby since they are supposed to grab the wristband back like a man. Meanwhile, Danny finds Kate and delivers his parallel self's final message. Surprisingly, Kate isn't shocked and tells him that he brings her a gift every week saying he loves her, but they're just not right for each other. Besides, she's already married to Pete. As she says this, Pete appears to flex his charming muscles, leaving Danny no choice but to flee once more. Back with Milo, he and the parallel Milo arrive outside his home, intending to explain everything to his grandmother. During their conversation, Milo learns that in this world, his parallel self turned to faith after his grandmother narrowly missed a tragic cruise accident 7 years ago. The parallel Milo believed it was God's intervention. Milo, however, grew up abandoned by his parents, with his grandmother having actually died in the cruise accident. He squandered the compensation, spiraling into a reckless life. As they step inside, Milo, seeing his alternate grandmother alive, is flooded with memories from his childhood, feeling both sadness and joy. His grandmother, noticing his odd behavior, asks what's wrong. Milo's mood sours, and he leaves the room abruptly. The parallel Milo, confused, follows him and asks what happened. Milo replies that he needs to leave because that woman inside is not his real grandmother. Picking up on the clue, the parallel Milo explains she has dementia and sometimes thinks he's him or even his grandpa. Exasperated, Milo sighs that this world is truly chaotic. The parallel Milo reassures him that she'll be okay after taking her medicine. After catching their breath, they drive off to meet Danny. Along the way, the parallel Milo mentions needing a coat from the trunk to avoid catching a cold, but Milo interrupts, saying his grandma would rather him not see what's in there. They start to walk away, but the unlocked trunk pops open, revealing the parallel Danny's body inside. At a nearby bar, Danny sits in a daze, struggling to comprehend everything that's happened. Milo approaches and says he feels like leaving this world too. He asks Danny what's wrong with him. Danny, looking dejected, replies that in this world, Kate doesn't love his parallel self. She's in love with Pete. It's like she's a different person. Milo agrees, saying he knows the key difference. In this world, he and Danny aren't friends at all, while in their own world, being friends is the best thing that could have happened to them. Outside the bar, the trunk of the car is open, revealing a corpse. A billionaire named Paul happens to pass by and sees it. He is shocked, with chills running down through his spine to the butt. After regaining his composure, he decides to call the police, telling them his best buddy Danny is dead like a piece of soap, and he doesn't know what's going on. Meanwhile, inside the bar, the killer appears, traveling through time. The three of them are taken aback. The parallel Milo, spotting the killer, tosses aside his drink and charges at him, only to be swiftly knocked down like a giant Barbie toy. Milo and Danny take the opportunity to flee, dodging a few swings from the killer's sword before both remembering the broken stairwell near the back exit. They make a dash for it like chickens riding Tesla bikes, skillfully jumping over the broken step while the unsuspecting killer trips and falls, knocking himself out. The two cheer, thanking this crappy bar for its broken stairwell. They remove the wristband from the killer, intending to figure out how it works for time travel. At that moment, Paul, having just called the police, spots Danny and, in disbelief, glances again at the body in the trunk. He asks what's going on, visibly shaken. Realizing they've been exposed and unsure how to explain, Milo and Danny watch as Paul, now frantic, exclaims that he had already called the police. They'll be here any minute. Just then, the killer wakes up behind them, ready to finish the job. Suddenly, a ripple in space occurs, and Kate appears to flex her hormone figure, saving the two of them. Paul runs off, shouting that there's been a murder. Milo and Danny, stunned by Kate's unexpected arrival, can't believe it's her. She draws a knife and says rule number 1 is to make sure the enemy is really dead. Realizing she's not the Kate from their world or this one, they reply this is definitely not their Kate. She asks if they've seen her Danny. Milo responds he saw him stabbed. Kate urgently asks where he went, but Milo says he doesn't know. Hearing this, she turns to leave, but Danny grabs her sexy body, asking what's going on here and why this killer is after them. He confesses that he is her Danny here, but Kate hits him, then warns he is not her Danny, and they two aren't unique. There are thousands of worlds with thousands of them. Milo interjects, saying her Danny mentioned that they were special. Kate cuts his bullshit off, telling them to better hide their heads and pray no one finds them. With that, she activates her wristband and vanishes. Once she's gone, Milo mutters she's rough while Danny comments on how sexy she looked in leather. After a brief exchange, Danny finds a card on the corpse with Goldenmeyer written on it and exclaims that it is important since that other Danny mentioned this. As they study the card, sirens grow closer, and they realize it's time to leave this world. They fiddle with the wristband, press a few buttons, and vanish into thin air. The scene shifts to a snowy landscape where medieval Danny kneels, injured. Medieval Milo arrives, sheathing his sword, and asks what happened. Medieval Danny says he couldn't find himself, but he did find the other Milo. He explains Milo was in sober that time, and he's not sure if Milo heard or remembered his warning. Medieval Milo sighs. There's nothing they can do about it because those two idiots are their last hope. After traveling through time, the two find themselves in a parallel universe. When they take a taxi back to Milo's place, they see a statue of him standing at the entrance, with an inscription honoring the birthplace of the music superstar Milo and forever memorializing him. Danny, surprised, says Milo has actually died. Milo replies that he is a superstar here, though. Eager to go inside, Milo dismisses Danny's remark about wasting time. While exploring, Milo notices an item with a description stating that in this world, when he was 10, his grandmother offered him a choice between a guitar and a Transformers toy. Milo here chose the guitar, becoming a superstar, while Danny's Milo chose the toy. Danny makes a sarcastic comment, and they continue looking around. Soon, Danny finds a suicide note from this world's Milo, with no clear reason given for the act. After seeing enough, they prepare to leave, but when they open the door, a crowd of fans and reporters excitedly gathers outside. It seems they were spotted while taking the taxi. Unfazed, Milo steps forward, interacting and taking photos with the fans, while Danny notices his other self within the crowd, eagerly trying to get Milo's autograph, completely unaware of the strange parallel. At this point, Kate arrives, who is Milo's manager and girlfriend from this world. Although Danny is usually just as important, he finds himself ignored, standing to the side. The three of them get into a car, where Danny asks Milo to take out the wristband so they can leave this world. Kate, puzzled, asks what wristband he mentioned. Milo explains it's a cool gadget, but after searching his pockets, he realizes it's missing. Evidently, a fan in the crowd had stolen it. Desperate not to lose it, they frantically tell the driver to turn around. They spot a young girl with the wristband, excitedly shouting she loved Milo. Milo shouts for her not to press any buttons, but she does, vanishing in front of everyone. Strangely, no one else seems to notice this anomaly. Afterward, Danny scolds Milo for being so careless, while the young girl finds herself transported to a snowy world. Back in the limo, something bizarre is happening. Kate, who can't quite understand what the two men were discussing, is overjoyed at Milo's apparent resurrection and tongue massages him, leaving Danny stunned. Unable to control himself, he blurts out why Milo is kissing his fiancée. This was meant for Milo, but Kate was confused to hear that. Milo steps in to explain, saying that he fakes his death to avoid being discovered that he is a gay and Danny is his fiancée. This revelation shocks both Danny and Kate. Just then, someone opens fire on the car. The limo halts and Kate steps out, saying she'll check the situation, leaving the two men inside to continue their argument. Milo taunts Danny, saying if Danny really thinks Kate should only love him and why she can't fall for Milo. Danny is left dumbfounded. Later, Kate takes them to a room and suggests they rest. Milo, eager to learn more about his alternate self in this world, asks her for a tablet. After she leaves, the tension between the two men escalates again. They argue until exhausted, then agree to take turns sleeping to guard against potential threats. Danny goes to sleep first, but Milo plays his own music while keeping watch, much to Danny's annoyance. Eventually, morning arrives, and Danny realizes he was never woken up for his turn on guard duty. As he wakes up and looks out the window, Milo notices the assassin on a billboard outside. He calls Danny to come and look. They analyze the situation and confirm that this person is their next target. The two head downstairs, where Kate is already waiting for them, reminding Milo that today, as part of his resurrection after 4 years, he's scheduled to attend a press conference. Though both Milo and Danny want to dig deeper into the assassin's background, Kate insists, and Milo ends up splitting from Danny, heading to the press conference while Danny gathers information. During the car ride, Kate offers Milo a mix of hallucinogens as breakfast, which he declines, prompting her to comment that he really has changed. Meanwhile, Danny uses clues from a previous card and numerous ads around to locate a company called Goldenmeyer. Just as he's about to enter, he's stopped by the assassin, who introduces himself as Steven and casually asks Danny for a cigarette. From his demeanor, Danny realizes that Steven hasn't yet become a full-fledged assassin. Playing along, Danny cryptically says he's from another world, and Steven wouldn't understand. Surprisingly, Steven does believe him and is eager to know more about these other worlds. On Milo's side, he initially resists, but ultimately agrees to play along with this world's Milo persona. He starts to feel a bit high, and Kate tries to get him to talk about his fake death, but he evades. When they arrive at the venue, Milo exits first, while Kate subtly collects a sample of his hair. The press conference starts quickly. Someone hands Milo a guitar, and he, confused, asks Kate what it's for. She reminds him that he always opens his press events with a song. Baffled, Milo tries to wing it. Suddenly, a gunman appears, declaring the press conference over. A series of gunshots ring out, and Milo watches as the room descends into chaos. He and Kate hide behind a speaker where he realizes he's bleeding and shouts he has been shot down in his smelly part there. Meanwhile, Danny follows Steven into a basement where he's conducting research. Steven explains he's a physics expert with his own theories on parallel worlds. Over the years, he's even built prototype machines, though they've never worked. However, he's identified 2 locations where quantum anomalies could be found, which might be potential portals. Danny realizes he's getting closer to the truth and urges Steven to elaborate. In the ambulance, Milo yells in pain as the medics examine him. When they remove his pants, they find that the bloodstains aren't his, making the situation incredibly awkward. After hearing Steven's story, Danny tells him there's another traveler besides him. It's Milo, the superstar. Steven, surprised, says that no wonder he's always liked him. Danny, slightly exasperated, suggests Milo might be able to fund his research into portal devices. As they prepare to leave, they encounter the assassin Steven again, who forces them back inside. In a struggle, the assassin injures himself fatally while trying to attack, ultimately succumbing to his wounds. As he dies, he fully believes in parallel worlds, leaving Danny with his sword in a moment of uncertainty. Milo, having narrowly escaped danger, exits the ambulance when Kate suddenly pulls out a gun, asking who he really is. Meanwhile, Danny, though holding a sword, is still scared of the assassin Steven. He nervously asks why Steven wants to kill all versions of himself and Milo. Steven explains that he doesn't intend to kill everyone, just the 2 of them, because they're too cunning and hard to distinguish, so he has to kill them all. Danny presses further, asking who's behind this. Steven replies cryptically, saying it's another version of him, someone he's also scared of. He warns Danny to give up and surrender, as running will only prolong the suffering. While speaking, Steven discreetly reaches for a dagger. Danny, puzzled, asks if he's seriously considering killing himself. Suddenly, Steven strikes, saying it's just a reminder, and Danny, unable to defend himself, is knocked down. Just as Steven goes in for the kill, Danny blocks with a nearby device in a panic, shocking the assassin into unconsciousness. Danny grabs his notebook, takes the wristband, and leaves. On Milo's side, he's puzzled as to how Kate figured out he wasn't the real Milo. Kate explains it's because he doesn't have a tattoo there. Milo admits he once thought about getting one but never did, then tries to persuade Kate that he's indeed not this world's Milo, explaining the complex situation of being hunted and suggesting they move to a safer location to discuss further. Hearing this, Kate lowers her gun. In a bar, Kate listens to Milo's explanation, still skeptical of the parallel world theory. However, she lowers her guard slightly, though her gun remains drawn. Mid-conversation, Kate receives a call with DNA results confirming the man before her is indeed Milo, which finally puts her at ease. Though she doesn't buy the parallel universe story, Milo plays along, saying he only spun that tale because she was holding him at gunpoint. Feeling the misunderstanding is cleared, Kate's gaze toward Milo softens. Later, Danny returns to the hotel, finding Milo in his room and excitedly shares his big discovery about the assassin Steven, who's been researching parallel universes. Just as he's talking, Kate, still in bed, groggily tells them to keep it down as they've woken her up. Danny realizes Milo may have slept with Kate. After Kate goes to the bathroom, the 2 argue again. Danny accuses Milo of betraying him by getting involved with his fiancée. Milo shrugs, saying she's not really his fiancée, she just looks like her. In frustration, Danny grabs the wristband, presses a button, but nothing happens. Milo accuses him of planning to leave him behind, and Danny, feeling slightly guilty, admits he was just mad, but it seems the wristband is broken. Milo, exasperated, complains that Danny is planning to abandon him. Danny, fed up, just replies he doesn't know, throws the wristband down, and walks out. Milo sighs in resignation. Just as Danny arrives at the hotel lobby, he's baffled to be arrested by the police. At the station, after being left waiting, he's still unsure why he was detained. Finally, an officer arrives, and Danny urgently asks what crime he's committed. The officer reveals he's accused of shooting at Milo during the press conference. Danny starts to explain, but then realizes he must be mistaken for the alternate version of himself in this world. Meanwhile, after Danny leaves, Milo dozes off until he's awakened by persistent knocking on the door. Half asleep, he calls out for Kate, but there's no answer. The knocking continues until Milo reluctantly opens the door, only to find the fan Danny. Shocked, Milo asks how he got up here and why his security didn't stop him. Fan Danny replies apologetically, saying the security are already dead, but he wants to know why Milo is still alive. Milo, stunned, exclaims he's insane. Fan Danny calmly responds yes, admitting that's what everyone says about him. At the police station, Danny is questioned. The officer demands he confess, mentioning that Danny's friend Paul had informed them about his threats against Milo. Danny insists that wasn't him, it's someone who just looks like him. At that moment, his lawyer arrives, allowing Danny to avoid further questioning. Recognizing the lawyer, Danny calls him Dad. Outside the interrogation room, Danny's father scolds him that he's in trouble again. Luckily, they lack solid evidence, but it's best if he disappears before they find any. Danny replies he wishes this wasn't a parallel world and that he wasn't such a jerk, but he can't expect that anymore since he needs to find people who can help him now. As he leaves, he turns back and thanks his dad for getting him out. Back at the hotel, fan Danny continues his conversation with Milo, convinced that killing him would actually help. With Milo's apparent resurrection and the discovery of a mysterious will, fan Danny believes his idol possesses some magical protective force. Overjoyed, he starts singing, while Milo listens in shock, realizing that this fan Danny believes he was the one who killed the superstar Milo, and that rumors persisted of Milo's sightings even after his supposed death. It seems that other versions of Milo have crossed over too. As Milo snaps back to reality and questions if fan Danny still intends to kill him, Danny returns, warning Milo to watch out because there's a crazed version of Danny trying to kill Milo. Spotting his double, Danny approaches cautiously, but fan Danny greets him nonchalantly as if nothing were amiss. Danny, baffled, asks how he ended up like this. Fan Danny explains that back in school, he didn't feel it at first. But once Milo started singing and got famous, he couldn't help but worship Milo, even though he was jealous at first. Eventually, he realized his mission was to revere Milo until he could consume him. Horrified, Danny says fan Danny is completely insane. Raising his gun, fan Danny coldly asks Milo what it was like to die. Danny intervenes, questioning why fan Danny isn't surprised to see him. Fan Danny replies he just treats him like a hallucination. Seizing the opportunity, Danny suddenly lunges to grab the gun, catching fan Danny off guard. A shot rings out, and both Dannys are left stunned. With fan Danny down, Milo stands with the gun, revealing that he was the one who fired. Milo sighs in relief, saying good thing there was a gun here. Danny, recovering, says Milo saved his life. Milo responds Danny had also come back to save him, and with that, the two hug and reconcile. After their embrace, Milo admits he's never killed anyone before. Just then, Kate walks in, greets them, and then approaches, startled by the sight of the body. Danny, sticking to his parallel world theory, even takes out his ID card to convince her. Finally, Kate believes Milo was telling the truth. Milo then asks Danny how the investigation is going. Danny explains that the physicist Steven was obsessed with parallel worlds, conducted considerable research, and discovered something involving quantum physics. Milo presses him for more details. Danny pulls out a map and mentions something about a portal at the cemetery. Milo recalls the superstar Milo's final words, which also referenced a cemetery. Danny says he's already been there but found nothing. Milo asks if he had tried climbing a tree. Danny realizes he hadn't. Kate interrupts, saying she's calling the police. There are two guards lying unconscious downstairs, and there's a body here too. Danny tries to dissuade her, but Kate insists they'd better run. The two head to the cemetery, climb a tree, and during their search, Danny notices something unusual. They both take turns jumping into a portal, leaving this world behind. In an icy world, the fangirl is nearly frozen, stumbling into a cave to seek shelter. Smelling food, she calls out if anyone is there. Inside, medieval Milo is cooking, and as he looks up, about to warn her not to press anything, she spots him, panics, and accidentally presses the wristband button, vanishing instantly. Next to him, medieval Danny asks if she has the wristband. Milo confirms yes, and she was even wearing clothes with his picture, so she must be from his superstar world. Medieval Danny's head spins, and Milo adds that it means they could be heading there too, if they cross the portal. Medieval Milo flips through his notes, finds an answer, and mutters a curse. He hands the notes to Danny, who reads them and mentions they need to find them before things get worse. In a church graveyard, Milo and Danny appear out of nowhere. They check the portal again and find it's one way. Now, with some experience, they quickly deduce that this isn't their original world. As they leave, they notice a sign on the church board saying the end of the world is near. The two head to Danny's house and spot the assassin lying in wait, so they hide under a window, watching for him to leave. Soon enough, the assassin Steven steps out, glancing at the empty street. He tosses a cigarette butt aside, which unfortunately lands on Milo, igniting his wool coat. After the assassin leisurely teleports away, Milo finally yells in pain and puts out the flames. Once the fire is out, they go inside and find their own bodies in the living room. But this Milo and Danny died in each other's arms, indicating that they might be a couple. Though a bit unnerved, they're mostly unfazed and even joke their deaths bought them some precious time. They decide to grab something to eat and take a naked bath. Just as they're about to step out of the living room, they bump into Kate and Paul, who are coming in. The Kate in this world greets Danny with a smelly kiss, though she seems equally friendly with Paul. She tries to enter the living room, but they stop her, fearing exposure. She looks puzzled and asks why she can't go in to check his muscles. Danny has to lie, saying he's got a surprise gift for her inside, and now isn't the time to see it. They're convinced to sit in the kitchen. The two quickly divide tasks. Milo takes care of the bodies while Danny distracts them. Milo drags the bodies out of the living room, planning to take them to the yard. In the kitchen, Kate hands Danny a bag of cocaine, saying here's what he needs. Holding it in surprise, he asks where he had got this. She says she bought it at the supermarket. It's even on sale today, though the quality is a bit low. Apparently, drugs are legal in this world. After watching Daniel Cece movie for a while, Paul stands up and says he's going to watch it on the big screen next door so he won't interrupt them. Danny quickly grabs him, saying Milo left a nasty smell in the living room earlier. Paul shrugs, saying he smelled worse, and tries to go, but just then, an air raid siren sounds. Danny looks to Kate, confused, but she doesn't explain, only saying they have to go. Danny, clueless about the situation, calls out to warn Milo, who is now in the storeroom and doesn't hear him. Unable to wait any longer, Kate drags Danny outside. Milo, now aware of the alarm, heads back inside, only to find they're already gone. Outside, people are leaving their homes, seemingly heading to underground bunkers. Danny, worried about Milo, is reassured by Kate that he'll know what to do. Inside, Milo tries to silence a smoke detector, thinking it's the source of the noise, only to look up and see a nuclear alert on the TV, urging people to seek shelter. Meanwhile, Danny tries asking Kate about the air raid siren, but just as Paul is about to answer, Kate interrupts, urging them to get inside the bunker quickly. They enter the bunker with others, and the PA system plays music with no one speaking. After a while, the alarm announces the end of the alert, saying it's safe to go home. Exiting the bunker, Milo catches up with them, asking if they were just hiding in the bunker. Kate responds that she had some business with Paul, then kisses Danny and leaves. The two finally discuss the alarm, realizing this world is already at war, though no nuclear bombs have been launched yet. The alarm was a government drill. As they talk, Kate comes back to Danny, telling him to come with her since she got a surprise for him. Milo waves them off, wishing the three have fun and saying they will meet at the old bar later. After splitting up, Danny had his eyes covered by Paul's smelly sock. He complained about the stink, and Paul just said he hated foot odor too, but he would put up with it for him. Soon, Paul removed the sock. Inside the church, a line of couples was waiting to get married. Kate suggested they get married today since they didn't know when they would die. Danny hesitated, but eventually agreed. Meanwhile, Milo returned home, calling for his grandma, but got no response. Figuring she was in the same situation as himself, he noticed a metal canister with a note inside, mentioning the place where they stole the halogen lamps. Realizing something, he quickly left. Milo met up with the newlyweds, poking fun at the bar's decor, but they were too wrapped up in each other to pay him any mind, kissing before saying their goodbyes like a typical couple. Only then did Milo learn that Danny had married Kate, with Paul as the best man, though Milo didn't mind being left out. He handed Danny the note he'd found, saying this must be a clue, and he found it at home. Danny recalled it's at their old school's kitchen. Just then, Danny's dad showed up, casually greeting him. Danny was at a loss, realizing his dad here was just as unkempt as his real one. Later, the two found their old school but saw it had changed significantly. They tried persuading the guards to let them in, but the guards were completely unyielding. When one guard finally moved, they panicked and ran. In the desolate world, the medieval Milo and Danny were running, chased by a horde of Stevens. They didn't just teleport themselves away from here because the nearest portal led to the nuclear wasteland. Soon, Milo and Danny dashed through the portal, leaving the Stevens behind, who, unable to follow, could only rage helplessly. Night fell, and Milo and Danny found Kate drunk outside the bar. Naturally, newlyweds would want to be together, but Danny hesitated. Milo asked how he could know she wasn't his Kate. With Milo's urging, Danny finally agreed to take her heavy body home. They didn't do anything intimate, though. Kate passed out after mumbling a few words. At home, Milo flipped through a notebook containing his counterpart's thoughts, finding this version of himself bitter and hateful toward everything. The next morning, Danny visited Milo and found his door unlocked. Entering the living room, he asked if he found anything last night. Milo started by commenting on his counterpart's gloomy personality and said the mess in the house was probably the assassin's doing. As for Steven, it seemed he vanished after the nuclear crisis, but Milo didn't mind since Steven wasn't a physicist in this world. There was one important discovery, though. Milo played a video for Danny, revealing that a few years ago a company bought their old school and converted it into a nuclear shelter with amenities like a cinema and a cafe. The annual rent was $10,000, and the company's name was Goldenmeyer. Shocked, they wondered how the company was involved in everything. Just then, Kate arrived, saying she couldn't reach Danny and urging them to check the news. She turned on the TV, where the Prime Minister announced that Russia had issued threats and that a nuclear strike was inevitable. He told the citizens to stay calm and stay with their loved ones. Danny, realizing he might actually die here, began to break down. Milo handed him a whiskey bottle, and in the somber moment, Danny passionately kissed Kate, caring little about which world she belonged to. Milo, feeling awkward, coughed to remind them of his presence, but it was futile. Finally, he told them he was still here and didn't want to act like a peeping Tom. Danny apologized before taking Kate to his room, the imminent nuclear apocalypse momentarily forgotten. Unable to bear the hormone noise at home, Milo heads to a bar for a drink to drown his hormone jealousy. There, he runs into Pete. They start chatting about the old fortress beneath the school. Pete says he can trade his wife for it. Though she's put on some weight, she is still charming. After Pete leaves, it's Danny's turn. He's incredibly pumped, and as soon as he sees Milo, he exclaims he's starting to get Milo's lifestyle. After a passionate night with Kate, she fell asleep, so he went out stealing. Milo is baffled by his transformation. After the unhinged Danny leaves, Pete returns with a crowd, telling Milo they had got people now since Milo said they would take down that fortress. They lift Milo onto the bar and he rouses them with a speech about how the rich get to stay in the bunker while they're all left to turn to ash. He shouts to reclaim what should belong to them and the crowd enthusiastically cheers along. Milo soon leads this group to the old school, planning to breach the fortress by cutting through the barbed wire. When Pete is electrocuted and falls, the crowd falters, but just then, the manic Danny shows up yelling he will help them out. Milo asks where he got the car, and Danny says he stole it, obviously. He drives into the barrier, but in a daze, crashes into a nearby concrete post. Though some might have left, the crowd stays put. Milo, disappointed, heads to the cafeteria to chat with Danny. After a while, Kate in her leather jacket shows up. Resigned to fate, Danny makes a move on her, and surprisingly, she reciprocates. The next morning, Danny wakes up to find leather jacket Kate gone without traces of her smell. Groggy, he finds Milo outside his house and says he's cheated twice on his fiancée now, with 2 different Kates. Milo remarks that it sounds like he's hooked. Just then, a pained scream rings out. They head to the yard and discover that Paul has found the bodies. He's shocked to see they're still alive. They try to calm him down, with Danny asking why Paul is at his place. Paul admits he came here to steal his bunker pass, but didn't expect to find the corpses. Bewildered, he asks if they both were really dead because none of this makes sense. Annoyed, Milo knocks him out with a butt head. The two head back inside to search for the bunker pass. Danny, familiar with his own things, finds it quickly behind a framed photo of him and Kate, with a note similar to Milo's. Danny considers leaving a note for Kate as well and sits down to write it. Soon, the two show up at the old school gates. Pete, spotting them, says he knew they will come back to help. They awkwardly agree and discreetly hand their passes to the gatekeeper. Once confirmed, they slip inside. The crowd outside doesn't even realize they're gone. They head deeper inside, planning to follow the clues to the kitchen, only to be intercepted by an old classmate who insists they go a different way, finally leading them into a bunker elevator. Once inside, they start strategizing on how to reach the kitchen, realizing their classmate likely holds the key. Milo says he's been involved with him before, so he will handle it. Soon, the elevator reaches their floor and they're led to their assigned room. The moment they enter, Milo feels an urgent need to use the bathroom, but Danny stops him, asking if this is really his life now, stuck in a bunker in a strange world when he should be getting married and living happily. Milo cuts his bullshit off, saying he really needs to find a toilet. On the TV, footage of riots plays. Danny sighs and sits down. Just then, Kate appears in the doorway. Danny says he knew she would find his note, but she confronts him about why he bought a bunker pass and didn't tell her. Danny explains they're safe now. Kate says she can't just hide here. She needs to find her family and friends. She turns to leave and Danny grabs her arm, trying to make her sexy body stay. Outside, Pete's group is still in the bunker. Milo finishes in the bathroom, unperturbed by Kate's arrival, and says they can make their move now. But Danny, still trying to persuade Kate to stay, tells Milo to go on ahead. The crowd outside shows signs of breaking in. Milo takes the elevator up to find his former classmate. He wants to say something, but the classmate cuts his bullshit off and pulls him into a smelly kiss. Milo, eyeing the kitchen door behind her, holds up a key card and suggests they go somewhere less conspicuous. Just as the classmate agrees, Pete's mob breaks in, shouting to kill these capitalists. Milo gets a few punches before the door opens from the inside. Medieval Milo and Danny arrive just in time to save him. Shocked by what he sees, Pete hesitates, allowing Milo to be pulled inside. Medieval Danny shuts the door, and the three of them start talking. Medieval Danny says the door won't hold for long. They need to move fast. Milo asks what about his other self. Medieval Danny explains that Danny is back in the bunker comforting Kate using his muscles. As the door shutters from the mob outside, Medieval Danny says they can walk and talk for more. Milo, full of questions, listens as Medieval Danny gives a quick rundown. It all started when they stumbled into a room filled with strange equipment. Then the assassin Steven showed up, thinking they knew too much, and began hunting them. They found these wristbands that let them jump worlds, and since then, they've been running for their lives. Milo asks if he can send him home. Medieval Milo opens a door and says no problem, telling him to come together. Back in the bunker, Danny reassures Kate and then tells her he has to leave. She's confused and surprised. The lights start flickering, and Danny senses something's wrong. Milo, catching sight of Kate, asks Medieval Danny why she got left behind. Medieval Danny explains that they all entered the room together, but they got separated when they first used the wristbands. While talking, the two of them lift a table to give Milo a boost to the portal. Milo asks why they didn't tell him this earlier. Medieval Danny rolls his eyes, saying he did try to tell him, but he wasn't listening. Milo sheepishly admits that he was a bit preoccupied. The kitchen door starts to give way, and Milo, still unsure, hesitates. Medieval Danny urges him to get on the table and prepare to jump through the portal. Milo tests it and asks what about the Danny from his own world. Medieval Danny replies he'll go get him, but right now Milo's safety comes first. Milo asks why he's risking his lives to save them. Medieval Danny, running out of time, says there's no time to explain and urges him to go. He goes to check the door while Medieval Milo, noticing his clothes are burnt, gives Milo his coat. Back to the bunker, Danny anxiously waits for Milo. Kate, watching the news, gasps and tells Danny some people had broken through the outer wall. Danny tries to comfort her, saying they'll be all right. But no sooner has he said this than they hear smashing and yelling as the mob approaches, forcing them to flee. Upstairs, the kitchen door is broken down. Medieval Danny urges Milo to go, saying they're coming in. But Milo refuses, insisting he won't leave without his Danny. Medieval Milo tries to convince him, but Milo is determined to stay. Meanwhile, Danny and Kate keep running, dodging Pete's group, who attack anyone in sight. The two medieval counterparts beg Milo to go, but he's fixated on Danny, saying he's willing to die for Kate. Meanwhile, Danny and Kate's path is blocked by a door. He tries to reassure her they'll be safe, though he doesn't fully believe it himself. Back with Milo, he hesitates, but Medieval Milo, seeing no other choice, shoves him through the portal. Milo steps through the portal and seems to arrive in a post-apocalyptic world. He watches as a thief is beaten to death in the street. The man, noticing Milo staring, snaps at him, but Milo quickly dismisses him, saying he didn't see a thing. Still trying to figure out the situation, Milo continues wandering around. While snacking on a sausage, he catches the attention of several people. In this world of scarce resources, it's rare to see someone eating so openly, so he gets mugged. Thinking fast, he throws the half-eaten sausage at them and makes a run for it, only to head straight for the police station. His attempt to report the mugging is useless here. As he stares in confusion at the wall, which features a wanted poster of an assassin, another group of officers arrives and moves to arrest him. Puzzled, Milo asks what he did wrong, but they only ask if he is Milo. He doesn't deny it, so they roughly take him away. Soon, Milo finds himself in a dark room where someone lights a torch to start an interrogation. Though he tries to tell them he needs to use the restroom, it's clear this is no ordinary police station. They ask him where Danny is, but Milo, still unaware of the gravity of the situation, tries to convince them to let him go. Their conversation is confusing, but he learns that the Milo and Danny of this world are responsible for a quantum massacre connected to the Goldenmeyer Company. This has made them wanted by the Apocalypse Police. Milo's explanation that he's from another timeline is dismissed, and they hang him upside down. His medieval clothing and belongings are used as evidence, leaving him at a loss and forced to plead for mercy. Not long after, Milo is thrown into a cell. His grandmother eventually comes to visit him, bringing him a banana. Starving, he peels it and eats eagerly. As he looks at her, he wonders if she could testify that he's not her grandson. But she insists he is, and even urges him to blame it all on his partner Danny. However, Milo doesn't know Danny's whereabouts, or even medieval Danny's. There's no way for him to clear himself. A month later, Milo finally breaks under pressure and confesses, just as his grandmother had suggested, putting all the blame on Danny. He doesn't realize that Danny has already entered this world via the portal. It turns out, medieval Milo and Danny had intended to use them as scapegoats. Observing from another room, Danny is outraged, hearing Milo shift the blame onto him. Two officers drag him out of the observation room as he shouts, "Milo is lying, and he's not the Danny they're looking for," but his words have no effect. Meanwhile, Milo, not hesitating, signs the confession. The officers simply remind him that they will see him in court. Soon after, Milo is forced to shave his messy beard and is then thrown into a prison transport, heading to court. In the post-apocalyptic court, an angry crowd shouts and jeers. Danny is also brought in, and Milo, surprised to see his partner after so long, greets him in shock. It turns out Danny was also found by the medieval versions of themselves and had gone through a similar ordeal. Using the pretense of ensuring his safety, they sent him through the portal, only for him to face the same fate as Milo. Now, furious and resentful over Milo's confession, Danny confronts him. Milo tries to explain that he thought Danny was still safe in the bunker, which is why he confessed. As they argue, Danny's father arrives, reluctantly stepping in due to family loyalty. The trial proceeds with charges of a quantum massacre. If found guilty, the penalty is death. Thus begins a farcical court session. No witnesses, no evidence, just each of them blaming the other as the mastermind. The argument escalates, turning into insults, until the judge finally intervenes, telling them to quiet down, and begins the closing statements. 6 years ago, Milo and Danny stole the wristband device from the physicist Steven's lab, allowing them to start traveling through dimensions. Each jump extracted energy from this world, leading to its current collapse. Because of that, the judge declares them both guilty, and the execution is set for tomorrow. Back in their cell, the two start discussing escape, but barely get a few words in before they start bickering again. Just then, this world's Kate appears. Danny approaches her, mentioning their passionate and smelly hormone night, but she refuses to believe he's another version of Danny. While they talk, Milo seems to choke on some food. Ironically, they had just been planning to fake a choking incident to knock out the guard and escape, so Danny yells at him to stop pretending. But Milo keeps struggling, making Danny think he's really choking. He lifts Milo, attempting the Heimlich maneuver. Kate, noticing Danny's technique is off, offers to help. Just as she grabs Milo, he casually presses his wristband, and all three of them jump. They arrive in a volcanic world where Milo nearly falls into a lava pit. Danny and Kate pull him back up, but they quickly realize it's too dangerous to stay. Milo, in a moment of impulsiveness, hits the button again, returning them to their original places. After the ordeal, no amount of explanation can convince Kate of their story. Frustrated, Danny pulls her sexy body in for a kiss, which with some finesse finally convinces her. She realizes that her world's Danny and Milo are still at large. With things taking a hopeful turn, the two ask Kate if she can persuade the others to halt tomorrow's execution. Kate agrees, but suggests it's not enough. Ideally, they need to catch the real culprits. Puzzled, Milo and Danny ask how they can catch the real culprits since they don't know where they are. Kate responds the culprits chose them too because they're almost identical to them. She asks him to think where they will go next if they were the culprits. Milo and Danny brainstorm aloud, eventually deducing that their counterparts will attend the execution to ensure their plan succeeds. Kate is skeptical, unsure if they'd really return to her world, but Milo and Danny insist they would. They wouldn't miss it. Though still uncertain, Kate agrees to set a trap at the execution grounds. The next day arrives and Milo and Danny are ready at the execution site. But they don't see Kate anywhere, nor do they spot the medieval versions of themselves. The judge begins announcing yesterday's verdict. To stall for time, Milo requests to make a final statement. Despite the crowd's impatience, the tradition allows him a last word, so Milo begins reflecting on his life, vowing that if he survives, he'll live a better, more meaningful life. Just as his speech reaches an emotional peak, the crowd still chants to kill the annoying prisoner. Exhausted, the judge finally declares that they should get this over with. Danny protests, saying he hasn't had his final words yet, but the judge dismisses him, saying the final words privilege is applied to him since he's too annoying, and exits. Milo's platform is then kicked out from under him, with Danny soon to follow. Just as Milo and Danny begin to suffocate, medieval Milo and Danny actually appear, still munching on food. The two express their love to each other. With the situation seemingly sealed, they turn to leave. At that moment, Kate spots them. Medieval Milo reacts by kicking her heavy body away, but Kate shouts loudly that the real culprits are right here. The crowd notices and rushes toward them. Someone from the back of the execution platform swings a sword, rescuing Milo and Danny. After they land safely, the person removes their mask. It turns out to be this world's Paul. He tells them he's with Kate and it's time to go. The two get up and descend from the platform. With no one stopping them, they're unsure how to escape. Their best option would be to steal the other two's wristbands or get Kate's help. However, she's currently chasing medieval Milo and Danny, so Milo and Danny follow suit. The crowd is eventually stopped by a portal barrier, allowing only the four of them to pass through. They end up in a snowy world, picking themselves up from the ground. With no sign of the other two, they enter a nearby cave to search and soon find their base. The four of them start talking. This time, medieval Milo and Danny seem unfazed, while Milo and Danny are visibly enraged. During the conversation, they learn that the portal device was created by the medieval duo and is programmed to respond only to Milo and Danny's genes, making this icy world a safe haven for them. Overcome with anger, Milo and Danny forget how skilled the medieval duo are, and they're soon overpowered and tied up, leaving the four in tense silence. It turns out the clues were never intended to guide Milo and Danny, but were meant for the three when they were initially separated. Choosing Milo and Danny was simply a stroke of luck, as their lives had similar experiences. The divergence point was after stealing the wristbands, and each world had a different Steven. As they talk, Danny discreetly strains against his bindings and finally breaks free. The medieval duo, unimpressed, let him go, knowing there's nowhere to run in the freezing landscape. Medieval Danny casually follows him, and soon Danny is stopped by a voice calling his name. In front of him stand 7 Kates, and he recognizes one of them as the Kate from the nuclear wasteland, his wife. He rushes forward to save her, but medieval Danny calmly arrives, congratulating him on discovering his collection. Stunned, Danny asks why he would do this. Medieval Danny responds that he loves Kate too, so he has captured every version of her that he liked. Danny tries to resist again, but he's quickly restrained and taken away. They don't notice that one of the Kates has managed to loosen her restraints. Meanwhile, Danny is brought back, where the medieval duo has changed plans. They now intend to use the two of them as fake bodies to deceive Steven. Just as they prepare to go through with it, Kate arrives. Medieval Danny, surprised, asks how she found them. Kate says she was tracking them. Medieval Milo looks embarrassed as Kate demands the medieval duo to come back with her to confess their crimes. Medieval Danny asks why she would do this to him. Kate replies that because he abandoned her. He argues that it wasn't abandonment, it was a device malfunction. Kate dismisses this, saying it was Milo's doing. Confronted by medieval Danny, medieval Milo hesitates before saying it was for their own good. She kept insisting on going home and they felt free without her. Medieval Danny sighs, saying he shouldn't have done this. The atmosphere grows tense, and suddenly, medieval Danny draws his sword and kills medieval Milo. Everyone is too shocked to speak. Medieval Milo is stunned and asks why Danny chose a friend and girlfriend over him since they are the best friends. Perhaps Danny couldn't handle the betrayal. Seeing this, Kate says she's still taking him back. Medieval Danny tries to win her over with sweet words, moving closer and closer. Suddenly, he attacks, saying she is of no use to him anymore. Fortunately, Kate is quick enough to dodge his ambush. Seeing this, Milo and Danny shout to kill this lunatic. Then medieval Danny changes his tone, saying he will surrender and will let Kate take him back since he still loves her. As Kate hesitates, Danny warns her to be careful, but it's too late. Medieval Danny knocks the sword out of her hand, smirking triumphantly. Just as he's about to kill her, more Kates arrive, shouting. Surrounded by his own collection, medieval Danny is ultimately killed by the Kates he once captured. The three escape outside, where Kate uses the medieval duo's data to transport them back to their original world. Milo, feeling relieved, says he's going to grab a drink and some food, then tactfully leaves, giving Danny and Kate some time alone. After a night of passion, Kate begins to fall for this version of Danny, but he already has a Kate in his own world, despite having once betrayed her. Medieval Kate, realizing she's overstepped, says goodbye and promises to return all the wristbands to the physicist Stephen, vowing never to travel again. She assures them that once Stephen retrieves his property, the pursuit will end. After one final kiss, Kate decisively departs through the portal. At their usual bar, Milo and Danny chat. Danny asks Milo if they are still friends after all this, including their betrayals. Just as Milo starts to say yes, Danny suddenly remembers his wedding tomorrow. Without waiting for Milo's response, he leaves. Milo, now used to it, watches him go, knowing that Kate will always be Danny's priority. Everything seems unchanged, yet somehow everything has changed. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.